Hello, my name is Susanne Evans and welcome to the ChangeStories podcast. This is a podcast for people who are interested in creating change, whether that is within organisations or for individuals. In each podcast episode, I will have a conversation with someone about their work to share their story. Each story and conversation will provide you with ideas and inspiration for your own organisation or for you personally. To find out more about each episode, including further reading, and to share your change stories, go to www.changestories.co.uk. Hello and welcome to this Change Stories podcast. Today I've got Lata Hamilton with me all the way from Australia. Hi, thank you for joining me.
Hi, how's it going? So good to be here.
I'm really happy to see you. Let me introduce you to the listeners. So you are a change leadership and confidence mentor, author of Pioneer Your Career Change, and the creator of the Leading Successful Change programme. Her mission is to help people carve their own paths for change in career, leadership and life, and find the confidence and authenticity to truly earn their worth. Lata has worked with some of Australia's biggest companies on changes that have impacted over 100,000 people, operating model changes impacting thousands, global cultural transformations and digital transformation that is literally changing the way we work. I'm so excited to talk to you. We've been connected on LinkedIn for a while and we finally met in person over the summer when we were both at the same conference in London, which was very exciting.
And a rare opportunity because I have not been to London for like 15 years. So it was great to be able to meet you in person. And now it just feels like we're old friends on this podcast.
It really does. So I'm really excited to talk to you about your work and your books and everything else. You do so many different things, which I'm really looking forward to talking to you about. But I wanted to start off first by asking you how you ended up working in change management, because my experience with most change people is it's not where they started, it's sometimes where they end up. So I'm interested in your own journey to this wonderful profession.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I actually am now starting to get on in years in change. So I think it's almost hitting the 10-year mark soon, which is probably like the longest career I've ever had. So I had 5 careers by the age of 35.
Wow.
I really sort of changed careers a lot. I mean, prior to that, like I started out working in a cafe and that was about 6 years. And then I sort of went into the advertising space. So I did media communications at Sydney University, which I thought was going to be like a really like sort of fun, like new media sort of degree where we would learn like radio and video and online and stuff like that. And we did learn that. But it was really, really like journalism heavy and like very more political, which is not my jam sort of at all. So it was kind of like thinking, okay, like what can I do with that background? And I sort of changed one of my majors from anthropology to management because I was like, I don't want to work in the media. I don't want to work in journalism. Like, what am I going to do with my life if I'm not kind of going down that path? And so I did management. And so I sort of started using those transferable skills in the advertising space. And then because I found myself in advertising, it was a small agency, really, really purpose-led agency. They focused on sustainability and not-for-profit campaigns. So really great area to work in. And I was working with great people and doing some really interesting, projects and campaigns, but the money just wasn't there. The money just was not in that space. And I was like, I'd worked really hard at uni. I had, worked my butt off for 4 years. I was like a high distinction average student. And I was like, what's this all for if I've come out of university and I was literally like on a salary, like a starting salary that if I just skipped uni and just gone straight into a supermarket stacking shelves, I could have literally earned the same amount as that. So then I kind of jumped across into the corporate world. So I just kind of made the move across from the agency side into the client side and into the marketing area. So I did a graduate program, and then when I came off the graduate program, which was fantastic, like I got all of this additional sort of like leadership training, and I got to work on different projects and do rotations. And then when I came off, it was like I just felt very stifled. I felt like they wanted me to go back, and this happened to a lot of the grads and was a lot of the feedback that was given. They wanted me to go back to what I was doing at the very beginning of the graduate program. And I'm like, but it's 2 years down the track. Like, where's the growth? Where's the variety? Where's the challenge? And then also, where's the money? Like, where's the pay rise? because I'm now more experienced, more seasoned, have more skills. So I ended up changing companies after, like, quite soon after my graduate program ended, and I did marketing in financial services instead. And that was actually where I first ever heard about change management, because I was just on a fixed term contract. I was there for 8 months, kind of got extended to 11 months. But I really didn't know what I wanted to do next, because like my background was in marketing and advertising. And so one of my colleagues, she had worked in project management before. And she was like, oh, I think you'd be good in change management. And I was like, what is this? What is that? And so I kind of spoke with the change manager internally. I just, went for a coffee in the internal cafe with her. And then I went to the Change Management Institute, which is kind of like the peak body for change management, went to their Christmas networking drinks. And I just remember thinking like everybody was so nice and so helpful and just so welcoming. And I just thought, if this is the kind of people that change management attracts, then this is the kind of profession that I want to work in. But I still had no idea what change management was. I just applied for roles. Like, I just sort of looked at job ads, looked at my transferable skills, crafted a CV that I thought, fingers crossed, would help me get a change role. And then landed my first change management role. And, if any of your listeners don't know what change management is, I'm sure they do. But I love to define things really simply. It's just moving people from doing things in one way in an organization to doing things in a new way. And we do that through communications, training, and business readiness. And so, yeah, it was really just, that was how it was, by pure luck, by pure chance, by somebody mentioning it. And I guess, with that background in marketing, in advertising, in communications, and I'd done some process mapping and things like that in the past, process improvement projects and things. So with that experience, it was just somebody kind of mentioning it to me. And I feel like that's how a lot of people end up in change management. It's a female dominated, highly paid career. There's not many of those out there, and everybody's come to change from somewhere else, from operations, from communications, from training, from HR, from senior leadership, from I think even I know people who have come across from teaching and from law and things like that. So there's so many pathways into change. But I think I was it actually got quite teary. I was watching a rap video that I did for an organization that I worked for several years ago, and I watched this rap video back today, this morning, and I watched it a couple of times. It was very all the music and thinking about what we had done as part of the project. And I started to cry. I was I love what I do so much. The sheer joy, and I don't know how to describe it. I feel so lucky to have found a profession that not just harnessed all my skills and experience and talents, but also one that I enjoy so much and am so passionate about. And that's really why, I help other people make the career change into change if that's something that they're interested in.
Do you know what? Your story will resonate with so many people listening, because I don't think I've met many change people who decided when they were thinking about their career, I want to work in change management. It's something that happens over a period of time, and your story will be very similar to lots of other people's. Also, when you were talking about rap video, the image that popped into my head first was you rapping, rather than it being a rap video as in the end of something.
I have actually done a rap video, which is me rapping. It's a hilarious video. It's a parody of Baby Got Back. But it's Now You Got Change.
Love it.
So yeah, if you want to go find that, it is hilarious. It's just on my website, latahamilton.com/rap, and it is really hilarious.
I should look that up.
Yeah, but you're absolutely right. I think a lot of people stumble across change. It's not like in high school you sit there and people are picking careers, and it's I want to be an accountant, I want to be a lawyer, I want to be an actress. It's literally nobody even tells you that this even exists, that it's even a possibility. And even during university, I think maybe it got mentioned in passing in my management degree, but I definitely never even did a whole unit on it. I think usually you have to do a master's or an MBA to do an actual unit on organizational change management. And then even people working in organizations which have a change management practice half of them, like most of them, don't even know that change management exists unless they come and work on your project with you. You wouldn't even really know that it's a thing. So I spend a lot of time explaining what change management is. My family spends a lot of time trying to describe what change management is to people, because people are like, what do you mean you manage change? Like, what?
Yeah. And I do think that's a bit of a problem for the profession. So I don't know whether you know Ket Patel, you probably do, but he and I had a conversation, I think on this podcast, or it might have been on his podcast, where we talked about how hard it is sometimes to explain to people what you do. And he said for a long time, he just said he did project management because it was easier to understand. And I said I did the same. So my background is in HR consulting before I moved into change consulting. And I used to just tell people for years that I did HR consulting, didn't mention the change stuff because everyone knows what HR is, but change is different. And I do think it's a bit of a problem for the profession, which is getting better with organisations like the Change Management Institute and, you know, the clearer definitions of what it is, of which you gave is a really good example. It's starting to be talked about a bit more, but for such a long time, it is something that people have kind of fallen into rather than made a decision to do. But actually, I see it in your work that you're talking to people about, actually, no, this is something you can make a conscious decision to do, and it will help you build the life that you want if you move in this direction.
Yeah, and I think that is such a big thing. Like, I talk really openly about money, but it's because, you know, I talk about this a lot in my book, where I'm like, your career is the launch pad to the rest of your life, because when you consciously choose careers that either allow you to work the way that you want or pay you a higher amount that allows you to set up your life the way that you want. And when I was making the move into change management, I kind of knew that projects paid more, like working in projects would pay more. And I knew that it would tick that kind of that growth and variety and challenge sort of boxes for me, which was what I was looking for, because I'd gotten so much of that in the graduate program, moving around rotations every 8 months. Like, I was like, I don't think I could be in a role like a BAU, business as usual role, just a regular role for 2 years. Like, I think I would just get way too bored, get itchy feet. But I didn't really fully comprehend that change management paid so much. And in some cases, at least here in Australia, you can have like a project manager and a change manager, and actually the change manager earns more than the project manager. So like, project management is a very male-dominated industry. Change management is very female-dominated. It's kind of almost about 70% in Australia. And so, and then the sort of the day rates and the salaries are often a lot higher. So it's just this real, and I think as well, it plays a lot to women's strengths too, like what we like to do, the connections that we see between people, the relationships that we build, the risks that we can foresee in the future. And then the planning and the organizing and the and sort of like collaborating with people and coming together, it really plays to those strengths. And then as, you know, more and more change managers, particularly practical, hands-on change managers who really add business value, as more of them go into businesses and get hired onto projects, and then those projects, those organizations start to, get a taste test of the value that change can bring. And then it just expands. And like, then they're like, oh, we want a change manager for every project. And I've just finished working with a consulting client, and I was in their office for their launch, and I was coming up the lift with my little consultant bag, wheelie bag with my laptop in it. And two people were like, I was sandwiched in between two people in this lift.
Yeah.
And I don't even know if they worked for my client. There were other businesses in the building. But the lady was saying to the man, like, oh, how's your project going? And he's like, yeah, it's going well. And she's like, I bet you it's like a lot of stakeholder management. And he's like, yeah, it's a lot. And then she said, do you have a change manager? And he's like, because he was obviously a project manager, and he was like, yeah, that's me. Like, I'm having to do the change management. And I'm sandwiched between these two. And I kind of like sheepishly, like it hit my floor, and I kind of sheepishly put my hand up, and I was like, I'm a change manager. Because like, I think people are starting to sort of like learn what it is and the value of it, but then they don't necessarily know that they can hire somebody to do that. Or sometimes they don't go and put the budget against actually having a change manager. But this client that I just worked with, it was like a construction project. And they're like, from the value that I've provided for them doing the consulting change work for them, they're like, we would always have a change manager now in the future. Like we have seen what you do. Like one of the program manager, she actually said to me, she was like, I knew that with a project management, you'd have a plan and you'd kind of like organize it all. I didn't realize that you do the same thing on the change side for the people to be ready. And I was like, yeah, that's what we do. And it takes a lot of load off the project manager and off the project, and then obviously provides value to the business. So it's slowly getting more and more traction. It's moving into new industries. It's moving into new countries even. So like sometimes I've had on my free masterclasses and things like people from South Africa, people from like Norway and Denmark, and people from the Middle East, and then also people sometimes from Asia. And they are like, oh, like there isn't an industry here yet, but we're starting to see the value of it. And so I'm like, start the industry. Like you be the one that builds the industry in that country. Like offer your services, offer what you can do, because the more that people know can know and learn the value and see the value of change management, then the more that it expands and everybody wins, like not just change managers, but it creates such a better experience on projects and for organizations and for leaders. It takes such a strain off leaders and projects to have somebody who's, thinking about what that end-to-end experience for people was going to be, how we're going to get them from A to B. Like everybody wins in that context.
And I think it's really interesting how that's developing. And I do think once a project manager or a leadership team have worked with change professionals, so not just someone who's doing a bit of change management on the side of their day job, but someone who actually this is what they do, it does make a difference, and that people do realise this is so valuable. But I think sometimes it's difficult for organisations to see the difference it can make unless they've actually experienced it themselves. It's that once it's happened, as you say, people will always want a change manager on their programme. But it's getting to that point where they've witnessed it, I suppose.
Yeah, although there have been instances where I've even seen this, where projects are reluctant to have change managers because the change managers that they've had in the past are a little bit more traditional. They're much more about sort of ticking the box, methodology, documentation, and they're not necessarily focusing on what's going to add the most business value, what's going to be really fit for purpose for this project right now. And so in some cases, they have questioned what's the value. So, I think like that's why I'm so passionate about a specific way of doing change management, which is, by all means, like not rigid at all. Instead, it's probably more flexible and more fit for purpose so that businesses actually get the value that they need and kind of grow the industry, grow the profession by showcasing that with each and every change.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think it's good. And I've worked in change for a long time, and I am seeing a movement to a way of doing change that fits better with my own values around change management. Exactly as you say, flexible. It's not one size fits all. It's recognizing that people are different in organizations. Within one organization, there's lots of different people and different mindsets and different motivations and different experiences of change. And we have to be flexible enough to deal with that.
Absolutely.
Which is good. So going back to your book, Pioneering Your Career Change, what I like about it a lot is it gives you that step-by-step plan, first of all, to create the change, loads of exercises and things to have a go at, but also your own experiences and stories of things that have happened to you and to others. And of course, I have a passion for stories, so I particularly enjoyed the stories. But what came through to me really strongly was this idea that you have to know what's important to you, so your own values, before you can get out there and start thinking about the job. And even in the conversation with you just now, you were talking about the things that you wanted, variety, growth. And it's so important for people to spend some time thinking about that, isn't it, before they think about what they want to do next.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I did a lot of career coaching. That's actually where I started in my business, was career coaching, like life coaching and career coaching. And it was really interesting. Sometimes I would have clients who would literally just be like, I don't know how I got to where I am today. Like I kind of just fell into it, or people would tap me on the shoulder with this opportunity and it was just easy. So I said yes, or my parents picked my career path for me. They never actually actively sat down and decided. And I think there comes a point where you wake up and you don't even know who you are, what you're doing, and why you're doing it, and that emptiness sort of starts to set in. And then if there's those additional stresses that you would usually have in any job is going to have them, such as like really difficult stakeholders or leaders or teams, maybe like tight deadlines, complexity and things changing day by day in terms of what's required. Like that's going to happen in any role, right? But if you're not 100% congruent and intentional about the work that you're doing and loving, not necessarily loving, like I talk very passionately because I do love what I do. I don't think that you necessarily have to die on the hill of your profession. Like it doesn't have to be the be all and end all. Like when I was a kid, I loved flowers. I thought I was going to be a florist when I grew up. I still love flowers. Like I literally spend most of my time in Europe going around taking photos of flowers and going on flower adventures. But I don't want to turn that into profession. Like I don't have to turn every passion that I have into my career. But you do have to at least acknowledge and know that you chose where you wanted to be, so that when all of those daily stresses, the normal stresses come up in a job, you're not resentful and you're not burning out because you don't know how you got there. I feel like that is what happens so often. People are so unsure as to why they're in a role that then they can't cope when like inevitable challenges come up in that role.
And it's really interesting. And I think you're right. So many people sleepwalk into a particular career because of a single choice that they made 20 years ago, to go in this direction. And then all of a sudden they're going further and further in that direction. And it might not be a direction they want to go in. And also what you said about flowers really resonates with me, because I after university I went into consulting, Big Four consulting, which I really liked, but then it reached a point where I didn't like it anymore and I wanted to change. And I started thinking about things that I loved and the things that I loved. So I really love archaeology and history. And I started to think, well, maybe I could retrain and become an archaeologist. But then the more I thought about it, I thought, actually, that isn't, I love that as a passion, but I don't want to do it as a job. And I realized I loved the job that I did. So the consulting, I just didn't like the place I was doing it. And that's when I decided to go out on my own. But and I say this to people a lot, you can have a passion, but it doesn't have to be your career, but you have to then have a career which enables you to follow that passion. Hence your travel.
Yeah.
You want to go and look at the flowers in Europe.
Yeah, exactly. Like choose a career that will allow you to have the lifestyle that you want. And that lifestyle might be more about being around there for your family. It might be about, being able to work remotely from the countryside. It might be about, having periods of time to travel, like, contract work, project work is great for that because projects end. They have an end date. Like the work isn't there when you get back. Like if your project's launched and you then, take 2 to 3 months off to go travel, the project's not there again when you come back. It's already done. So like it's almost like it's inbuilt. And so a lot of that guilt that you might normally feel around sort of leaving a BAU role, like, a lot of people are like, well, if I leave my role and I go on holidays, I've got to do all the prep to get everybody ready and to hand over before I go on holidays. When I come back, I end up with, up to the roof filled with all the tasks that I need to do to catch up again. What was the point of going on holiday? But you can be really strategic and like pick careers or pick ways of working, such as contracting instead of permanent employment, which can allow you to make those choices in your lifestyle to either follow your passions, follow your hobbies, or just have a life that you prefer, like the way that you live that you prefer. And I think that this is so important for women. I don't talk about this probably as much as I should or would like to, but I have endometriosis, and I find that I can't sustain working 5 days a week. Like it's physically not available to me because I have peaks and troughs through the month. And if we think about sort of the corporate world and work generally in our industrial relations laws, they are really geared around men's hormonal cycles, of which there is a daily cycle rather than like a monthly cycle, and the ability to just work at peak performance, like day round, week round, month round, year round. And for so many women, that just isn't our lived experience. Like we experience changes, throughout the week, throughout the month, and then throughout our life in terms of what our hormones are doing at any particular stage. And then, adding to that mixed pregnancies, young children and things like that. And it just completely, it's like expecting women to perform at that peak level 5 days a week, 40 plus, 40 to 60 hours, sometimes 80 hours. It's just the reason why so many women end up burnt out, why our hormones are so out of balance and why we struggle so much. And so I've got real peak periods of the month, and I'm able to like perform really highly during those. And then I have other periods of the month where it's a bit harder. And so I manage like where I'm working, what I'm working on, how much I'm working. And then because I work for myself, which is a blessing, I sort of am able to sort of take off the time that I need when and if I need it. Obviously, if I've got something already booked in, I might, push myself, but that's the rare occurrence, not the everyday.
And I do think that's a really important point for women, but also people with health conditions. That means they can't always be on. But I mean, let's face it, that's true of all of us. I think about my own experience now at my stage of life. So I'm 50 and going through the perimenopause, and there's good days and bad days. And as I hear of so many women who are leaving their careers because they feel like they can't function, and it saddens me. This is true through my whole career. People leaving the workplace because they can't fit it around their life, and that's sad in every level. It's sad for people who want to continue working but can't find a space for them to do it. But it's sad for organisations too, who are just losing so much talent because they're inflexible. And that's why I went out on my own. So my daughter was 2 when I set up my business, and I didn't want to be traveling all over the country anymore.
And like what you said about the organizations, it's like you're putting your pipeline in jeopardy.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the reasons why so many baby boomers are actually still in the workforce, is because they haven't moved on. You've got these kind of Gen X waiting in the wings, wanting to take those senior leadership roles. But now, like I get contacted all the time by sort of Gen X people, particularly guys actually, who have seen the way that I work, the fact that I have my own consultancy and I work so flexibly and fluidly, because their kids have already grown up, they're out of the house, they're now fairly senior, but they're not making it into those C-suites. They're not making it onto those board roles. And so now they're like, what am I waiting for? Like, I might as well enjoy my life while I'm making money, you know what I mean? So they're really curious about independent consulting. Like organizations are losing the possibility of a pipeline, as well as, obviously for the individual, whether they're male or female, they're losing potentially, the income and the retirement investments that they could be making, as well as that sense of self, that sense of purpose, that sense of identity, and that sense of continuing to contribute. It's been really interesting actually, like watching my dad, because he had like quite a busy career. He was like, I was in a traditional family where my dad was the breadwinner and my mum was a stay-at-home mum. And that was sort of an agreement that they came to. So they made it really consciously. And so dad traveled a lot when I was a kid, and then he was in sort of these global roles and things. So he worked like a lot and worked full time, and sort of would like leave the house at 6, come home, 6, 7 o'clock at night. And then he kind of left work. And it was funny because you would think then after such a long period working, when he retired, you would think, oh, he just wants to then relax, do what he wants to do and things like that. But he's actually found a lot of passion and a lot of purpose in the local surf club. So he's a trainer, and, he's really active in the surf club, volunteers, does surf patrols, trains other people, runs these credentials and things like that. And I've talked to him about it because I was just super curious. I was like, like it takes a lot of your time. He still obviously does relax and goes on holidays and things like that. But I'm like, it takes a lot of your time. And he said to me, he's like, I'm working because I want to, not because I have to. Like, that's the real big difference. Like, yep, sure, he was researching like boat parts to fix this thing on a boat, on one of the surf boats. And I was like, doesn't this feel a bit like your career used to be? Like, when you had to be up at like 11, 2 a.m., whatever, for a call with the US. And he's like, yeah, but the difference is I want to do this.
Yes.
Mm.
And I think that's so true. I've had that experience. So when I set up my own business, and you may have had the same experience, that you do often find you're working more because there's lots of other stuff to do. You've got the business and the work, but you've got to do all the stuff on the business. But then it feels different because you're doing it because you want to. So there's not that, oh, I've got to do this thing. You're doing it. It's the motivation is totally different.
Yeah, the motivation's different, and being able to do it at the time that you want.
Yes.
Like today, I honestly I've just come off a really busy period launching with my consulting client. So I've really taken it easy this week, even though it's sort of the time in the month when I'd probably have the most energy. But I've felt quite tired, so I've just really taken it easy. And today I literally spent like 3 hours in the middle of the day just like watching TV, watching like like old TV shows, and then like scrolling on Facebook and Instagram. And I was like, where did those 3 hours go? And I was like, but my body needed it.
Yes.
Like when I got up to sort of, I better do some work now. And I was like, why am I kind of like and I was like, my body just needed a rest. Like it needed that time. So the ability to be able to work at the times that I want to work, like Sundays are beautiful days for me because there's nobody contacting me and it's so quiet. And that's when I do a lot of writing and a lot of thinking and things. And I go to yoga in the morning, and then I'll come back, have breakfast with my partner, and then I'll often sort of start doing some work maybe around 10, 11 o'clock, work through the day, and then I'll take breaks through the day, have lunch, watch some TV again with my partner, but I'll sort of do maybe about 6 hours. And it's okay though, because I take off time during the week, and it's like that's a nicer day for me to do that kind of work.
And I guess when you were in the kind of corporate space, if someone had said to you, I'd like you to work on Sunday, you probably would have been, no, I don't want to do that. That's my time. I recognise that in myself very much.
Yeah.
The other thing I really liked from your book was around confidence, and there's so many tools in there about building confidence. I have lots of conversations with people, you will too, who are working corporately but want to be consultants, and they're scared about what that might look like. They're scared of having to go out selling. They're scared of losing the kind of guaranteed income. What is your advice to people who are in that space, who are thinking of making that transition into consulting?
I would say you're very right to be scared. The guaranteed income is definitely a real thing. It's probably one of the things that I struggle with the most, despite the fact that every year I've made over 6 figures anyway. So it's like, I don't know what I'm worried about, but like, it is just inconsistent. It's like some months will be really peak and like a lot of money will flow in. Some months will be lower. And I think you kind of like learn the seasonality of your industry and of your own business and of your clients. But I think that there's so many benefits. And if I sort of am looking at the way that the workforce is structured and where work is heading, I see a lot of, even in the change management space, I see a lot of women and people who are quite seasoned, they are quite experienced, and they're actually struggling these days to get roles. They're struggling to get roles because they are putting themselves against people who are a lot cheaper and a lot more junior. And the issue is not their expertise and their skills. The issue is simply that they're playing in the wrong space now. They've already gone above and beyond the employment space, and they can be starting to think, if they want to, about the consulting space. And, you mentioned about sort of like the Big Four consulting. I think a lot of people think that that's the only kind of consulting that's out there. But as an independent consultant, like I like to say, you choose your own rates, choose your own schedule, choose your own clients. You choose the work and you choose the services and the products that you want to do. And then you choose the schedule that you want to work, like what does work for you, what kinds of days. And, you know, it might be that you, like me, I take about 3 months of the year off to travel, relax, business plan. And so I'm only really available for 9 months to my consulting clients. But then I also have, you know, different days through the week and times through the week where I'm not available sort of either. And so you can really choose the way that you set yourself up. And like, I love when I work with a client and I actually do a statement of work and a package that I've pulled together for them. And I'm like, you know, if I put an end date, like you have an end date for this one, I'll deliver everything in that time. But when I work is up to me. Mm-hmm. And if you want my time at a particular time, that's when you actually pay me more to come in and work for a particular point of time. And that's where you can kind of really start to choose your own schedule. And then you can choose your own rates. So because income can be that little bit inconsistent, because you might have business overheads that you didn't have when you were employed, it's really important, I think, when you do embark out as an independent consultant, that you actually charge appropriately. For me, I tripled my rates overnight, tripled my day rate overnight instantly. I mean, I prefer to actually charge based on a statement of work, but if clients do want me for a day rate, I just went, it's triple what you would have paid me as a contractor when I was a contractor. And that's to cover, you know, everything, like you're paying your own taxes, you're paying your own superannuation or retirement fund, you're paying business overheads, insurances, like plus the inconsistency of income. And so it ends up balancing itself out, if that makes sense. Like what you used to do, you kind of can either match or potentially exceed, because the potential is unlimited when you're working for yourself. There is no salary cap like there is in the employment market. There is no day rate cap like there is in the contractor market. So the potential is unlimited. And it's just about how you set yourself up and how you, I mean, in terms of being able to find the clients, it really is about that positioning, about building that personal brand, about knowing who you are, what you want to offer, what you want to charge. And I love sort of talking less about sort of hunting for clients and finding clients. I think that's a really masculine way of approaching independent consulting. Instead, I like to just be like, this is me, this is what I do, this is what I can offer, and this is the way that I do it, like the energy that I bring, the approach that I bring. And then I attract clients to me. I attract the clients who that really resonates for. I attract the clients who feel that connection with the way that I want to do change. And then if I have clients or consulting opportunities that come to me that don't really fit me, I either politely decline or I might, refer them to somebody else.
Yeah.
And that's okay. And like my first year of consulting, you would have laughed at how much work I turned down. I turned down so much work because I wanted to start the way that I planned to go on. And so I knew I was really sort of skilled. I mean, that was one of the reasons that I started my own consultancy, was because I was starting to reach the point where I was going to cap out with the day rates and the salaries in the employment market. And I was like, what am I going to do for the next 20 years if I cap out in 2 years? You know, if I reach the ceiling of what employers will pay me in 2 years, I'm like, what do I do for the next 20 years? So I went, well, let's just take the ceiling away, move into the consulting space. And, you know, you mentioned on my website, there's a lot of different things. And it's true. Like I've got my hands in a lot of different pots because I'm more around sort of career change and career inspiration. For others, I'm specifically around the move to change management. But I still love working with consulting clients. Like I hated being at university and the lecturers who would be standing there in front of the lecture hall or in front of the tutorial who hadn't worked in industry for the last 10 years. And they're lecturing you on like, well, not lecturing you, but like, you know, telling you about how it's going to be. And then you're like, you haven't even stepped foot in like a workplace or in an organization except to maybe interview somebody for research. It's like you haven't actually been working in industry. And I never wanted to be like that. I wanted to be like, if I'm going to be, you know, helping people make the move to change management, if I'm going to be helping people with their projects and things like that, I was like, I want to keep working myself in the industry too, which is why I do both consulting and then I do like my courses and my trainings and my classes and content and books and things as well.
But I think that's the key to keeping it sustainable. If you want to be working as a consultant, but also have that flexibility to do your own thing and travel or do whatever you want to do in your time off, you have to have those multiple, I don't know, revenue streams, products, whatever you want to call it. But that's how you make it sustainable. Otherwise, you end up with those huge peaks and troughs, don't you? Of like, now I've been so busy on that big project, I haven't had time to do any business development. So I'll do some business development and then, I'm doing loads of work again. And that's how you have to level it off. And I think that's a really good lesson for people who are thinking of making the move into consultancy is you can't just do consultancy projects. You have to have other things in the background that can sort of plug those gaps.
Yeah. And I mean, we met from speaking when we met up in the UK. And so that's kind of like a new revenue stream that I'm looking at. And that might not be for everybody. That might not be what people might like to do. But then other people might be like, I really love working one-on-one with people. So I'm going to do a bit of one-on-one coaching instead. Like, it's like, what do you feel passionate about? What are you interested in? What do you like to do? What can you offer that could be that extra, like revenue stream? And then I would also say, like, lean into the seasonality of your industry, of your business. Like, there's no point me pushing hard on launches and consulting clients in December, January, when all of Australia is on holiday.
Yes.
Just nobody
it's the same
cares.
here in August.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, why push at that time? Like, instead, that is a beautiful time for me to wind down my year. I start business planning for the following year in usually October. And then I kind of like put all of that and get all the groundwork done. Sort of, I usually take off December, go to my parents' beach house. And then in January, I sort of do the groundwork for the year coming up. And then I go skiing. And then I kind of come back and everybody sort of starts getting switched on again, sort of from February. And it kind of really ramps up, projects and students and everything really ramps up in March. So instead of railing against that seasonality, instead I just go with that flow. And yeah, it's hard. Like, it is tough sometimes when it's the start of the year and you're like, where's all my money? My money gone. And then like within a couple of months, you're like, oh God, I'm drowning in income now. Do you know what I mean? So it's just kind of like staying strong. And I think that's why, honestly, like when I run my retreat and everything, it's about the consulting mindset. Like that, I spend most of my time, like I do teach the bits and the bobs, like the practical, how do you actually set up an independent consultancy and what do you need to do? But really, it's around the consulting mindset. It's about shifting the way that you think about yourself. It's about shifting the types of conversations that you give yourself permission to have. Like, I don't work with project managers with my consulting clients. Usually I'm working with boards, executives, senior leaders, and you're having conversations at those levels. And then it's about, that permission around sort of charging what you want, and then that mindset around how do you create that sustainable business, that cash flow, that kind of, by the time you get to the end of the year, there is that consistency. There is that consistency sort of year on year.
And I think it's good for people to get that and to be able to come to people like you to get that support, because it's the idea sometimes of being a consultant is very appealing. And I think the point you made earlier about you can reach a ceiling in your career and you become a really big fish in a small pond and there's nowhere for you to go. That's the ideal time to branch out. But there is a lot to learn to become a consultant if you've only ever been in corporate for 20 or 30 years. So I think it's worth it, right? I think it's, you and I both work in this way, and I can't imagine having a proper job now, frankly.
Yeah, I can't ever go back. I was actually just saying to my sister on the phone before this podcast, I was like, I could never go back to working 5 days. Like, I just, even though, as you say, like I sometimes work probably 6, but I don't work the full day. I'm not there from 8 till 5 or 6. And I've never been one who works really long hours, like who works sort of 12-hour days. I've definitely been the type that kind of works 7, maybe 8 hours if you're lucky. But like, I definitely work so much more flexibly and fluidly. It's great because I get to choose the work that I do, which then really lights me up. And people then know you for that. Like you like the more that you do, then the more it kind of just like a snowball effect, that sort of self-fulfilling prophecy. And when you take on that identity as an independent consultant, when you really start to acknowledge and appreciate the expertise that you bring, the skills that you bring, and you really own it, other people then see that. And that's where that confidence shines through. And so it's all about how you position yourself.
You know what? I think that's a very good point for us to finish our conversation. I could carry on talking to you all day because your energy, as ever, is amazing. If people want to find out more about you and your work, where should they go and look?
Yeah, definitely come follow me on LinkedIn. So I'm just Lata Hamilton on LinkedIn. And then if you want to find out more about sort of my courses, my trainings, my retreats and coaching, you can come find me on latahamilton.com. And yeah, just come and see. I have so much there, but if you are really interested in sort of career change specifically, I would really recommend my book. Even if you're like, I think even just for inspiration generally for your career, it's latahamilton.com/pioneer. And you can find out more about my book. It's on Amazon in print and ebook, and then it's on all audiobook platforms, including Spotify and Audible. But it is just a really good read, very inspirational, very empowering, and can kind of, I think, get those juices flowing around what it is that you want for your career.
I can highly recommend it. It's a very good read, full of excellent stories. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. As ever, it's been a joy to talk to you. So thanks so much for coming along.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Change Stories podcast. I love this conversation and I hope you did too. Thanks as ever to my wonderful guests and to Pete Morgan at Monkey Pants Productions for making the podcast sound amazing. If you want to find out more about this or any other episodes of Change Stories, go to www.changestories.co.uk, where you will find all the episodes and show notes. If you have enjoyed listening, please rate and review the Change Stories podcast on your podcast listening platform. And do please let me know if you have ideas or requests for future episodes. You can contact me and find out more about change and storytelling on my website, www.feldsparconsulting.com. Thanks again for joining in with the Change Stories conversation.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.